This longer form video of cardinal tetras and Hoplocharax was filmed at Daracua by Jackie Anderson. These are cardinal tetras, and these are by far the most economically important fish from the Rio Negro region. At one point, these fish represented up to 90% of the export of aquarium fish from this region and up to 60% of the income for this region. That's very important because it provides rural families and communities with a sustainable source of income that's linked to environmental protection because these fish are quite sensitive, and that requires the habitat that they live in to be protected in order for the fishery to thrive year after year. So it creates a culture of stewardship surrounding the fishery. What I'd like you to look at is this shoal of fish that's behind the cardinal tetras. These are rather interesting. These are a fish called Hoplocharax, which are very infrequently available in the hobby. They're actually more often come in as bycatch with the cardinal tetras because, as you can see, they occupy the same habitat, they use the same resources, but they're just a different type of fish. And they look very similar to a lot of the other species of hemigramis that are in this area, being a silver fish with kind of a darker spot, kind of a darker line, and bright red eyeshadow. But they're actually quite different from some of those hemigramis tetras. They're more closely related to some of the more predatory fishes, and if you can get a close-up look of the teeth, you can see just how different they are and how much brighter that red eyeshadow is. They're a really interesting fish that's very infrequently seen in the aquarium fish hobby, again, unless they come in accidentally. I'd like to point out, too, that this is very shallow water up here in the flooded forest. This was actually filmed in 2023, so this was a more regular water level year, and there was about ankle-deep water here in the flooded forest. You can see that these are terrestrial plants that are sort of poking up through the leaf litter, but even though the water is only about ankle-deep, the leaf litter is probably about knee-deep, so it was actually really hard to move around in this area, but these fish were really attracted to that movement because any disturbance of the leaf litter kicked up lots of little microorganisms and detritus and biofilmy type stuff that these fish were really actively grazing on. So this was really cool to see. If you could get into the middle of the leaf litter and sit down, the fish would just come to you, which was really interesting to see these fish behaving rather naturally. And all of those species of fish were doing that. So there were some hemigramis mixed in with the shoal with the Hoplocharax, hemigramis bellati, hemigramis analis, and Hoplocharax goethii. And these, the cardinal tetras, were sort of omnipresent throughout the habitat and would just come shoaling anytime there was movement or kicking up any of the silt or detritus or anything like that. And this is actually significant because a lot of the times when the people are fishing, they'll like dangle their fingers in the water to disturb the surface a little bit, and the fish will come right up to them and they'll be able to capture these fish. And again, in the wild, these species are rather annual fish. They don't live more than a year because as those water levels change, their resources change very much, and it also affects how the fish are able to survive into the next year, although they can live for several years in an aquarium.